You know, it's funny, for years I've been using iPads or other tablets with my laptop trying to effectively use them as a second monitor, when what I really should have been doing was just using an actual second monitor, albeit a small portable one. I'm Chris Wook and this is Make Use Of Reviews from MakeUseOf.com, and this is the Inosian 13A1F portable OLED monitor. Today we're going to see if this is the right portable monitor for you. Now, before we dig into the actual review, we're giving away one of these monitors, and all you have to do to enter that giveaway is head to the full review over at MakeUseOf.com. We'll link that down in the description. And if you want an extra chance at winning, there's a bonus code that I'll mention at some point in this video, so just keep watching. Now, looking at what you actually get when you open up the box, of course you get the monitor itself, and you get this, a nifty little kickstand that is what helps this stand upright on a desk. We'll look more at this later on. You also get cables to actually connect your PC or other device to the monitor. You get two USB cables. One is just a power cable and the other can carry power and signal. It's a much thicker cable. You also get an HDMI cable with a full-size HDMI plug on one side and a mini HDMI plug on the other. Finally, you get an AC adapter that you'll use to power it, either if you're plugged in via HDMI or on the rare occasions that a single USB-C cable isn't enough. I'll be honest, looking at this, it's hard not to just see an iPad, at least when you don't have the display turned on. It's roughly the same size, and it even has those Apple-style flat-rounded edges. Now, its overall resemblance to an iPad aside, it's a nice-looking device. This is not the cheapest portable monitor in the world, but it still looks classy. It looks like something you would spend $800 on and then be very careful with. When you actually turn on the display, that's when the differences become more apparent, especially that larger bezel at the bottom emblazoned with the Inosian logo. Is that how you say it? Is it Inosian or is it Inosin? Or is it innocent? Like innocent? I don't know. Now apparently those big old bezels don't weigh that much because this thing is surprisingly light. I think it weighs about 1.3 pounds. If you want the exact details and other specs, go check out the written review. Probably don't want to do that too much. Now we get to talk about one of the fun parts, at least if you're me, the kickstand. It attaches on the back and it only goes right here. You might think the magnet's in here and you can just put it anywhere, but that is not true. You have to put it where the circle is. The kickstand does offer quite a bit of flexibility, so you can mount this in a lot of ways. That said, if you do want to mount this sideways, if you're a programmer looking for a second monitor, for example, you're gonna have to put it so the ports are coming out the top. I've seen previous models of these that used a different method of standing up. They included a case, kind of like an iPad case, that would fold up like this. I much prefer the kickstand because it gives you a whole lot more flexibility in exactly how you mount it. Now here's something you probably don't think about. Fingerprints. You don't typically pick up your desktop monitor and just carry it around the house, but as you can see, I've been holding this thing through a lot of the review, and I'm assuming you can see that it's picking up a ton of fingerprints. I wasn't able to find exact information on this, but I will say it looks like it has some sort of oleophobic coating like you'd find on an iPad. That said, it is much more of a fingerprint magnet than my iPad is. I'd say if you're frequently traveling with this monitor, you probably want to keep a cloth handy to wipe off fingerprints, especially if you're going to be outside, but we'll look at that a little bit later on. Now, all the ports on here are on the left side, assuming you're facing the monitor. You get a mini HDMI port and two USB ports, one for power, one for video signal. A lot of the time, you'll only need to use one of those ports because the thicker USB cable will carry both power and video from your laptop. Of course, those ports being only on one side isn't going to work for everyone, but I could see why the company couldn't really afford to put a power port on one side and a video port on the other, or mirror them on both sides, but still someone's going to end up unhappy. I'm also not particularly thrilled with the bright white cables that were included in this, since everything else is a muted gray that would fit well with, for example, a space gray MacBook, especially a 13-inch one. That HDMI port and cable are very handy if you only have an HDMI output, but unfortunately, you'll still need to plug in a USB cable and the power adapter. Now, when it comes to setting this up, it really couldn't be simpler. I've already showed you the kickstand. Bam, put it on there. Figure out how you want it to go. All you need to do then is plug in your cables, assuming you already know which cables you're going to use. This might take a little bit of experimentation, but you'll figure it out pretty quickly. After that, the only thing you need to do if you're using this as a second monitor for your laptop is go into settings and choose whether you want to extend your display or mirror it. That secret word for the giveaway? Mini monitor, all one word. Again, that's mini monitor, all one word. Looking at the controls, there are basically 2 buttons. It kind of acts like 3, but you have a volume rocker and a multifunction power button. The volume control is pretty straightforward. Yes, this has speakers. We'll look at that a little bit later on as well. But the power button is less straightforward because this is also how you control the on-screen display. Using a combination of that multifunction power button and the volume rocker, you can navigate through the settings relatively easy, but it's never going to be as easy as you want it to be. If you've ever had a good time adjusting the settings on a monitor, more power to you, but I don't believe that you exist. It still isn't exactly easy adjusting the controls on this, but being able to pick it up is actually pretty useful when it comes to navigating through those fiddly settings. You are going to get even more fingerprints on it that way. What would be handy, what would be really handy as a matter of fact, would be an app that you could use on your computer to adjust those settings. But all the work it would take to make that doable, I'm sure would double the price of this, which we probably don't want. Now, let's look at the nitty-gritty of this display. Let's get down to the specs. This is a 13.3-inch OLED panel with a 1 millisecond response time and 100,000 to 1 contrast ratio. Now, that all sounds great. And it mostly is. The refresh rate is 60 Hertz, which is starting to sound on the low side, but if you're using this for productivity, you're not going to worry about the refresh rate at all. What isn't a problem is how the display actually looks. It's an OLED panel, so the colors are very vivid. They're actually very accurate looking at the figures that Innocean provided. Text is sharp, everything is sharp. It looks very nice. I was using this next to both my 15-inch MacBook Pro and my 15-inch Windows PC. It looked great with both of them. There were no issues with subpixel rendering, making text look wonky on either one, which is always nice to see. Interestingly enough, considering the brightness is only 400 nits, this monitor does support HDR, but only if you connect it via the HDMI port. That's a little unfortunate since connecting via USB-C is way easier, but sacrifices exist. Now, yes, we talked about fingerprints already, but we didn't talk about the other elephant in the room, and that's just how glossy this display is. If you're inside and you don't have bright lights pointed at you, that's fine, but if you're going to use this outside, that could be an issue. Unfortunately, it is freezing outside right now, so I can't test that and show you, but I can show you some footage of this reflecting lights. Now let's get down to business. Let's talk games. That's not business, but whatever. If you want to play games on this, you absolutely can. It looks great thanks to that OLED panel, and you don't get a lot of blurring. The big downside is going to be that 60 Hertz refresh rate. In an era where more and more gaming monitors and even laptops are offering 144 Hertz refresh rates in their displays, 60 feels a little low. If you're plugging this into a Nintendo Switch, you're not going to notice that because the frame rates aren't going to go that high anyway, but you're probably not going to use this with a high-end gaming PC anyway. If you're using it to do some mobile gaming, it's great, but I would not consider it, mainly because of the size, as your main gaming monitor. Now finally, let's talk about the itty-bitty tiny little speakers that are in here. You might have guessed they were there from me talking about the volume rocker before, but looking at the tiny size of this, I mean, they put speakers on iPads and they sound pretty good. The speakers in this do not sound that good, but it's hard to blame them coming in at this price point. The speakers are just tinny. You can use them to hear things and that's fine, but don't expect big blockbuster sound. The bigger issue with those speakers is that for some reason, this really likes to take over audio from anything you plug it into. If you're plugging it into something without speakers, that's good, but if you're plugging it into your laptop, which has a decent set of speakers, and it robs the audio signal, you're gonna have to go into settings and fix that, which can be slightly annoying. I'm going to make a bold prediction and say that if you're watching this video at all, you probably know whether or not you're interested in this. And if you are, it's a good one of these. The size and the refresh rate are going to be the two issues that I think determine whether or not this is right for most people. Refresh rate for games and things like that, and then the size for anybody using it for productivity. The colors are very good. I don't think you're going to use this for professional video or photo work, but for anything where you just need an extra display, it will easily match your laptop's built-in display. Downsides, the speakers aren't great, and the controls can be a little fiddly. That you could say about literally any monitor though, so I'm not going to dock them for that. If you've got a 13-inch laptop, especially one that kind of looks like this, like a MacBook Pro or certain Asus computers, this is a perfect companion. If you're ever working outside and you think, man, I could use a second monitor, but there's no power, this is a great option, assuming that one USB-C cable is all you need, which in most cases it will be. And there we go. I am Chris Wook with Make Use Of Reviews, and don't forget to check out the full version of this article over at makeuseof.com so you can enter that giveaway. Thanks to Inosian for providing the review unit, and thank you for watching.